Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
what do you call it when you have to return to college for one last semester to finish up your liberal arts credits?
I don't know. What do you call it?
Back for history! Hello and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your cleaner, but not in my apartment, host, Madelyn.
What?
They call them cleaners.
Oh, right. Okay. I was like, I'm not sure I get that. I'm your time-traveling host, Emma.
And thanks for tuning into the show. This week, we're always time traveling on Talk This. No, we're not. We record live on Sundays.
Yeah,
at
it's
noon.
always live on Sundays.
It's never a time traveling podcast.
Yeah.
This week, we are talking about Radiant Historia and Back for Blood.
Yeah.
4. Numeral 4.
Yeah.
So, let me make the same joke. Oh, history! Bloody history! bloody history! History's so bloody! It's still funny.
It's
3
still
weeks in a
funny.
row.
It's good. It's a good one.
I could have made that the opening joke probably, but I decided to go with student loan joke instead, I guess.
I also continue to make these games hard on Madelyn by going through the DS generation.
Emma's doing this to me. Emma's like, you must subsidize the game. You must prop up the game industry by purchasing the new game.
I'm not doing it on purpose. There's just a lot more DS games that are now available to us.
Right.
And also, in honor of its death,
It just really makes me feel like, Nintendo, give me more of these games on the Nintendo Switch so that I can purchase them for the podcast
There
and
you
play
go.
about a third of them and aspire to return for the next 4 years.
There you go.
I can't remember what even the game. What was the PS1 game that is like an RPG?
Oh,
So it's with V, I think.
does it start Vagrant Story?
Vagrant Story. There's still part of me that's like, maybe I could go back and finish Vagrant Story.
You could.
I could. That's not on the Nintendo, but anyway. Radiant Historia, I'm sure, would end up in a similar way for me. Anyway, Radiant Historia, as Emma insinuated, is a Nintendo DS role-playing game from Atlas and Headlock.
Yeah.
Released in 2010 in Japan and 2011 in the US. Did not come out in Europe, so sucks to be Europe. And if you got the 3DS, there was an expanded remake that came out in 2017-2018 called Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology.
Yes, it is on my backlog.
Of course it is. Oh, so then should I not spoil this too much for you?
Well, I mean, it's fine. Let's not talk about, the ending, I guess.
Too late, here we go.
We're jumping right in.
There's one ending where somebody explodes.
I'll get that one. I'm looking forward to that one.
So Radiant Historia has some of the RPGiest RPG names that we've encountered in recent memory. It's set in Vancouver. I don't know if this game is voiced. Vancouver?
Vancouver, yeah.
Which is a continent, as RPG settings often are.
Just medieval settings, to be fair.
I guess.
Game of Thrones is just set on a continent, isn't it?
That's true. I just don't think of...
People don't like to deal with sailing, I think, so...
That makes sense. I think there are boats in Game of Thrones. Sometimes.
There are sometimes boats, but they're not, going... Whatever.
Anyway, it's a Game of Thrones podcast now.
I'm just saying, a lot of fantasy settings, I feel like traditional European fantasy are here's a big continent.
Yeah.
Versus, here's, the way our world is set up with bunches of continents.
It's true. More of a Pangea situation. Anyway, you had 2 warring countries, as you often do. Alistel and Granorg. Which just are not real names. Could you imagine calling yourself a Granorgian your entire life?
Alistel sounds fine.
Alistel does sound... Well, Alistel doesn't sound real, though.
It's the Norg part. Well, it doesn't have to sound real.
I know. I just mean Alistel sounds too much like a country name. You know what I mean? It sounds too much like it's a nation.
I guess so, yeah.
To me. I did in response to this. I made Click with Boyfriend. Like I was reading this, I was researching for the podcast while he was sitting nearby, and because I felt like these names were so RPG, and I just wanted to see if he would like come up with the exact same names when I asked him. I did ask him to be like, if you were to make up 2 names for like warring countries in an RPG, what would they be? And he made up Altreus and Ethereum, which he regretted after the fact because he was like, that's almost cryptocurrency. But I feel like, Altreus and Alistel.
There's always gotta be an A country.
There does. Anyway, you play as Stock.
Yeah.
From Alistel. My notes say a spy, but I think Stock is not actually a spy. I think Stock like works for a spy, basically. And you're like escorting a spy back to the capital, and you get into some trouble, and everybody dies. But fortunately, you've been given a fancy book called The White Chronicle, which is a spell tome that you discover allows you to travel between timelines.
Yes.
So you're right away able to go back and be like, my friends that died and how bad that battle went, let's not do that.
Yeah.
And fix it up. And so then, like, with that responsibility, it's your job to stop climate change.
Yeah, the desertification of Vancouver, specifically. Vancouver, yeah.
People, it's a little unclear to me, like, it seems like both the world and just, like, people are turning into sand.
Yeah, because it's more of a curse, not like a natural weather change based on, like, fossil fuels or whatever.
Well, yeah, sure. Climate, like, it doesn't have to be man-made climate change.
Yes,
climate
the climate is changing.
The climate changes here. And so in this game, you've got this, initially in my notes described it as like a Fire Emblem-y kind of like grid-based, turn-based system, but that's not really right. It's more of like, you've got like these like 3-on-3 battles a lot of the time in small grids. And so like you do a bunch of fighty stuff, and you also do a bunch of like time travel-y stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you don't get like maps of turn-based tactics. It's like you have encounters, and then those are very small, grid-based combat systems.
So more accurately, it's like Persona. Only it's not, but it's like sort of
like
a
Persona with a little more moving, I guess. Yeah.
I was trying to be like, it's Atlas. I should compare it to Persona, not Fire Emblem.
Okay.
Anyway. So yeah, you do a lot of time travel.
Yes.
Which is always, whenever I am reading on a game and I get to the mechanics section and the first section is time travel, I know I'm in for a treat.
Yeah, what's unique, I think, about this one is my impression is you can change which timeline you're on.
Yes, there's
at pretty much any point.
2 like main quote unquote timelines.
Yes.
You can jump back and forth, and there are different like battles and sort of choice points. You can jump from the nodes.
Yeah.
There's one timeline where you like stick with the spies, and there's one timeline where you like go to the military, basically. And different things happen. But over the course of it, you're trying to figure out how to like stop this sand plague desert transformation of the world using your White Chronicle. But somebody else has got the Black Chronicle.
Yes.
Of course. So to contend with that as well.
The expanded edition adds the Red Chronicle in its new story content.
Yes. So Radiant Historia, like, it's got pretty good reviews.
Yeah.
It's, sort of been swallowed up, I feel like, in the, I don't know, it was just like all this stuff on the DS that it's like, well, maybe you knew about it if you had a DS in the year like 2010 to 2012, but then has kind of like disappeared, which is a shame.
Well,
right?
it's an odd duck Atlas title, right? I read some interviews talking about how like this is one of like their first, and I don't think they've done a lot of this since then, where like someone else came to them with a proposal for a game, and they took it up on them and worked collaboratively with them. Whereas before they said usually if they're working with someone, they're taking a proposal to them to do like part of the development on a game that Atlas is making, versus Atlas helping somebody else, the people at Headlock, I guess, make this game.
I don't know if you read this particular interview. There was like a funny little interview where the the guy who came up with the idea was like talking about how like he came to the meeting and he had like the art and he had like the concept, and they were like, "Whoa, you have the art and the concept, like we could do this." And they were all like, "Now everybody's gonna think that like if you come to us with like some drawings and a story outline, like we'll do your game." And the guy was like, "Well, maybe." And like that is pretty important.
Yeah.
But it was also like, I also was reading, they were like, "Oh yeah, like we were like messing around with this like prototype like in our free time working on other stuff." And like relevantly to our podcast last week on like our game's too big and like are too long. The podcast was really about our game's too big, but
Yes.
ostensibly the topic was our game's too long. And I was like, man, imagine like messing around with like a time travel RPG in your free time, like working at a game company now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
another thing we should have talked about on that episode.
They did greatly scale back the idea from his original pitch. Like halved it basically.
What episode is this reminding me of? There was some other game that was also like time travel-y sort of.
13 Sentinels?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm thinking of. The development process read a little bit similar to that to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just have to handle a lot when you have any sort of like alternate timeline stuff.
Yeah.
But he originally was going to have, like, the original pitch was there were like 4 countries and your protagonist was like a sword.
A sword, yeah.
And you went through like each of the histories of each of these 4 countries,
right,
like as this sword.
It's like a mortal sword.
Yeah. And from there, and Atlas was like, no.
Atlas was like, people can't empathize with a sword.
Yeah, I did think that was funny. It's like, a sword, people aren't gonna like a sword, right? It's like, I'm sure they would, Atlas, actually. But they pared it down to 2 countries, like, have, like, the 2 timeline system, as opposed to having, like, wider branches than that.
Yeah.
And also, made a more traditional, hero character in stock. I was reading an interview with like the character designer and the original concept creator.
Mm-hmm.
And this is always really funny reading like stuff from people like that, because they talk about how like, oh, like, you know, I just designed some characters and then they're like, oh, I like this guy could be this, or like Stock was originally a side character who was like an assassin and was supposed to look incredibly plain.
Yeah.
Like he had bangs that fully covered his eyes, and his outfit was all black.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, and then they took him and made him into more of a traditional, cool guy looking hero.
Like, he's red now.
Yeah. And when they changed sort of the idea of what they were going with.
I also like how every single interview ever with a JRPG character designer is like, I wanted to make distinctive silhouettes.
That's important.
I agree. It's just a funny thing to,
especially when it's like sprite art, right?
Right. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, what a weird thing to be like top of every interview. They're like, what were you thinking when you were designing these characters? They were like, silhouette.
Yeah. It's very important.
No, and like this guy in particular made a point of being like, this isn't just like a game design thing, like this is just like a good art thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, I get it, buddy, but you'll need to find some new talking points, because you're all like, so what?
I think this is the same interview, but I really liked also when they were like, they were making all these characters, and the character designer, what's his name? Kozaki?
I think so.
Konishi. It's not Kozaki, it's Konishi. Was like, would draw a lot of characters and submit them, but apparently he really likes drawing middle-aged men specifically.
Don't we all?
And they mentioned like, oh, like whenever I got like a girl character, they always had like their backstory and their purpose, but I got a lot of like middle-aged men that just hated drawn. And was like, do you want these? So I like that just whenever he was like, oh, I gotta draw another character, he's like, I'll just draw another middle-aged guy.
I couldn't find where this came from, but like, so there's a princess character in the game, Iruka, right? Who in the original game has short hair, which Wikipedia claimed she was originally set to have long hair and they cut it due to hardware restrictions.
Yeah.
I was like, what does that
I didn't know where that
mean?
claim came from either. I looked at the things. And
I hope somebody just wrote that in.
I don't know what it would be, right? Because there's not...
Or it's not like
3D
somebody moving
models.
around. Like
Yeah.
long hair, I feel like I was talking about this for no reason on a previous podcast recently, right? Like long hair often looks bad. But
Yeah, but
here it just would have been a drawing.
Yeah. And, like, there's sprite art that animates, but I don't think long hair would be particularly more difficult than flowing cloaks, which every character has.
Whatever.
So.
The Nintendo DS cannot handle long hair. Let it be stated. Let the record show.
Let the record show, yeah.
Anyway, they did do long hair for her for the remake. They, like, changed it up. So 3DS,
They did
powerful
say...
enough.
They did say they had the most trouble with her design, so I like that even after it was released, they were like, man, I'm not sure.
In the end, maybe it should have been different. So should I do a little of Madelyn's lore corner here? I won't spoil it too much. Although, who even owns a Nintendo DS or 3DS anymore, really?
Well, just one more fun fact about, like, the art before you go into
please
it.
do.
I really like, they were talking about how, like, all these sprites have, like, animations that they do and different attacks and stuff. And they had done, like, incredibly detailed work on all of these sprites. But because of all those animations, each, like, battle, like, random encounter battle was taking about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so they had to go through and, like, shorten all of the animations that they had done until they eventually got down to about 2 minutes, which I have to be like,
Yikes.
What were the animations
before?
What were they
Full-on
doing?
Acrobatics.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are, Madelyn's lore corner. I'll give you the walkthrough. So, like we said, right, 2 warring nations. There's also the beast tribes who are out there, and you, like, hang out with some beast men.
Mm-hmm.
But you are, like, in one timeline, you stay with, like, the spy. It's a guy named Heiss, who's your boss. And in one, you become a soldier led by your buddy Rosh. And so, like, in both timelines, like, you end up working with Erica, who's a princess of Granorg, who, like, knows something about how the plague might be stopped, right, or reversed. And you also discover that there's this priest from Alistel who's trying to, like, depose the queen, and Heiss, who's, like, the spy boss, is kind of playing both sides against each other, right? A lot of political intrigue. Anyway, things get complicated. Like, it's a time-traveling thing, so, like, the story gets complicated. I'm about to say things that if you played Radiant Historia and it's wrong, I'm sorry. I'm just revising the timeline, doing the best I can here. So, like, you overthrow this queen, you defeat this evil priest. We eventually discover that the way to do this ritual to, like, stop the sand for a little bit is there's got to be, like, a human sacrifice. And it's you! You're the human sacrifice. But Heiss doesn't want you to be, because he's your uncle. Surprise! And, like, I don't know, it was not quite clear to me why you didn't know that. But you've lost your memory somehow. Anyway, basically what happens is...
It's like a lost identity thing.
Got it. So basically what happens is, like, someone is killed, and then, like, you resurrect them using someone else's soul, and then you kill again, and then that, like, stabilizes Vancouver's mana.
Yeah.
Somehow. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I don't
to
think, to be honest, when you get into any sort of JRPG and Wikipedia plot summaries, it does not have the context necessary to fully understand things.
Of course not. I was more just commenting on the metaphysics of it all.
Sure.
Of why would a repeated resurrection cycle...
Probably something to do with energy caused by that sort of cycle.
Word.
Don't say word.
Anyway, like, this is why the Black and the White Chronicle, which are these, like, time-traveling books, were created, right? So, like, this ritual, like, continues, and the sacrifice is prepared, and that kind of thing. And then there are, I won't spoil beyond that, but there are different endings. 2 major different endings, I guess. You know, of course, there's lots and lots and lots of endings, but 2, like, actual endings, in the main, or in the original game, featuring different endings.
Yes.
And then there's a new ending in the remake, remaster, redo.
Yes.
that is in many ways the best ending, and an ending that not everybody loved.
Exciting.
Well, it just people thought it might have wrapped up too nicely. But I read at least one piece that was like, isn't the whole point of this entire game that, like, you're looking for the path that wraps everything up super perfectly nicely? Right? Like,
Yeah.
the whole point of it is that you're going back over and over and over again and, like, trying to figure out how to make slightly different choices or do things slightly differently so that everything ends up where, like, nobody dies and everybody's actually sort of good.
Yeah. I do believe in order to get, like, what is considered the canon ending, you do have to unlock a lot of timeline branches.
Yeah.
Rather, like, you don't just, like, pick a path and you get to the correct ending. It's
Right.
like you have to explore a lot of different areas in order to get to the canon ending.
Right. You have to do all of the side quests, is what
well, yes,
which
that's
is,
the
of course,
expanded canon ending.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a JRPG.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that in, like, a wow, there's definitely seems like there's a lot of story here.
Yeah. I like that the DS was like a haven for timeline hopping games.
I know. Where is that now? Who's
Visual
working on the
novels.
next? Well, okay, yeah, sure. But, like, who's working on the next? When is time travel going to become, like, the thing?
I don't know.
Probably never.
People are scared of it.
Rightly so. This one seems like mostly effective to me. I mean, obviously playing it would be a different story, of course, but relative to some of the other time travel games that we've talked about on the show, this one at least, like...
Like what, for example?
Wasn't 13 Sentinels kind of time travel-y?
It's sort of time travel-y, yeah.
I don't know. I'm not remembering specific examples very well, but I do feel like whenever time travel comes up in media, frankly, I'm kind of like...
Malin just doesn't like time travel, though.
I just have a hard time with it. It's just something I have a hard time suspending my disbelief with. Or rather, I just, like, it just has to be presented in, like, a specific way.
I guess.
For me. And that's
For
fine.
me, I just don't want them to explain it, really, ever.
Well, right. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is, like, the more you try to explain what's going on. But, like, also, I just feel like the more you start to dabble in, like, well, small changes have a ripple effect. I don't know. The more you just open it up for me for, like, well, what about that? What about that? Like,
Malin thinks too much.
I do
basically.
think too much. But I find this one to be, like, sort of, you know, like, relatively effective, at least in idea, because, like, yeah, like, you really are sort of, like, going back and trying things and trying things and trying things and trying things, right? It bothers me when it's more like, I'm on a time-traveling adventure, and not where it's like, I'm literally using time travel to, like, continue to experiment until I get the path I want.
Okay.
That makes more sense to me.
Okay.
This is all arbitrary. This is not me saying this is better. This is me just saying, like, for my particular, very specific time-traveling sensibilities, this doesn't trigger the, like, alarm in the same way a lot of stories do.
One thing I think one more tidbit from the development team that they were talking about is the White Chronicle, which is, like, what enables you to explore these different timelines. They talked about how, like, at the beginning they're like, we weren't sure what sort of thing we wanted to be, like, the time travel apparatus because we thought books were so boring and rote. So they went through, like, a lot of different ideas, but nothing felt good. So eventually they ended up on book again.
That's funny. I thought it was interesting, and yeah, just, like, of a different era, that, like, there were a couple of interviews with the creators where they were getting asked, like, a lot of, like, very lore-y questions and, like, actually answering the questions. And I was like, nobody does that anymore. If anyone asks them for, like, something that's, like, sort of, like, not clear in the game and asks those questions in an interview, it's like, well, the player will have to decide that. And these guys were like, nope, here it is. Let me explain for you the lore. I mean, sometimes they were like, oh, yeah, like, this is, like, you know, only sort of sketched out in the game kind of thing. But I was like, wow, a lot of really detailed questions that these guys do answer, which is just funny. It's funny to me.
I think it helps when it's a smaller project, too. You're closer to it and perhaps hold all the details in your head, which is probably helpful.
That makes sense. It also features, speaking of being a small project, it features music by, you know, Taku's favorite, Yoko Shimomura. I'm always afraid of
Shimomura, yeah.
Yeah, missing a syllable in her last name. And they just, like, sent her an email.
Yeah, she thought it was a prank.
She was like, they were just like, who should compose this? And they were like, how about her?
Yeah.
And they were like, let's send her an email. And then they were shocked when she emailed back saying she would do it.
Yeah, apparently she gets a lot of, like, spam from companies, like, asking for her work that, like, aren't really offering anything, which I think is the case for a lot
literally anyone with an email address.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so she had to, like, double check. She's like, that Atlas. But apparently she really likes the Shin Megami Tensei series, so she wrote back being like, tell me more.
Yeah. There was one interview where they were like, she said she took forever to make the work, and they were like, that's not true. And then the interview was like, I also heard it was too big for the cartridge, and they were like, okay, that is true.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, cartridge size.
Yeah.
They had to convince them to give them a 1 gigabyte cartridge as opposed to a 512 megabyte one. Unbelievable. 1 gigabyte.
1 whole gigabyte.
Only fit 10. I can't even put 10 podcasts on that.
Seriously.
So, you know, it seems like Radiant Historia is probably dead, though.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Weird games come back.
I guess so.
It wouldn't necessarily have been a game where you're like, yeah, 7 years later for the 3DS. Like, absolutely, a remake.
I would say, like, they could put it on Switch if Atlas ever did anything that made any sense to me.
No.
But they don't.
They won't.
They just, I mean, I don't, whatever. They're very confusing in their decisions, so.
Well, speaking of things that are back from the dead, maybe?
Yeah.
Back 4 Blood. Back 4 Blood.
I was gonna say, it's not Back 4 Dead, Madelyn.
No, it's not Back 4 Dead. I just meant that there are, well, contractually I can't call them zombies.
What are they called in this one?
Ridden.
That's not a good one.
It's not great.
I'm not a fan.
You know, they're also, like, constantly like, a tall boy! And there's a tall one coming.
Well, I am a fan of that.
I guess.
I would think that if there were, like, different types of zombies, I would eventually revert to calling them, like, small boy, tall boy.
I guess. You're right. Like, I can't, they're like, explodey! That's not what it is, but that's, like, almost what it is.
It gets to the point, you know? If someone doesn't know what these things do, and someone's like, look, it's an explodey, you know what they're talking about,
You're
right?
right.
You know it's gonna explode.
You're right. Anyway, Back 4 Blood is a 2021 first-person shooter from Turtle Rock, published by Warner Brothers. It came out in October for Windows, the PlayStations, and the Xboxes. And Turtle Rock, you may know, are the creators of Left 4 Dead.
Yes.
Which is also a first-person shooter with zombies. What a coincidence.
Left 4 Dead is held hostage by Valve. So these like original creators wanted to make something that was in the spirit of Left 4 Dead. So Back 4 Blood. They weren't very subtle about it, but to be fair, they didn't need to be.
Yeah.
I do feel like there is this sort of trend recently of like original creators like making things that are spiritual successors to their work that are held captive by like corporations, which is neat.
People just should have signed better agreements in the late aughts, probably.
I'm sure they had a lot of options.
I know. I'm just kidding. Back 4 Blood, much like Left 4 Dead, is like a player versus environment game, but really player versus zombies by, I don't know what they're called in Left 4 Dead.
I don't know what they're called in Left 4 Dead either.
Probably something else stupid.
Probably.
Again, it's like, this is not what we always talk about in zombie games. We're always like, whatever they call the zombie is stupid. I can't remember what our most recent zombie game was. But in this game, they're called Ridden. And so what's happened here is there's an alien parasite called Devil Worm that infected most people, turn them into the Ridden. And then we've got these, like, people who are immune and alive left, who call themselves the Cleaners, who have, like, I mean, I think there are other places that this happens, but the Cleaners we focus on are defending Fort Hope, Pennsylvania, and trying to not just survive, but clear out other areas to be safe to live in.
Sorry, I was trying to find what the zombies are called in Left 4 Dead, and I can't find that. However, the pathogen that turns you into a zombie is called the green flu.
Ugh.
So, fun fact for you today.
Green flu, yikes. It's probably coming.
It could be coming.
They've detected it in the wastewater in New York. So it's probably already spreading.
There you go.
Anyway, as the numeral 4 in the name of both games suggests, Back 4 Blood, you play in a 4-person team. Like a 4-person team of cleaners. And you've got your usual guns, melee weapons, Molotovs situation. And you go around shooting the undead. I mean, or the worm afflicted, I guess.
Yes.
Rather, as you move from safe house to safe house and level to level. And each of your, like, cleaner options have, like, different strengths and different, like, special abilities. I did play this.
Oh, wow. Good job.
Had it been $60, I would not have played it. But it is on sale, or it was on sale. Sorry, it was on sale this past week. I think it's not on sale anymore. It might still be. Best Buy for Xbox, it was on their, like, 10 days, $10
I see.
situation.
Yeah.
So, might still be on sale for that. But it was on sale on PSN for, like, half price. And I mentioned to my boyfriend, he was like, I loved Left 4 Dead.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't... I have to enunciate the 4 really specifically each time. And I was like, okay, so, like, I'll get it. And then when I'm terrible at it, like, he'll have something to do to keep him away from whatever his next Apex Legends relapse is.
Is this better or worse than Apex Legends for him?
What do you mean by better or worse?
Just for his time.
I think it's going to be better for his time.
Good.
Mostly because I think it's ultimately probably not as good in the way that we would play it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like an ad on Hulu right now where these people like running and they really look like they're in the Apex Legends world. Anyway. But Apex is a dead game. Anyway.
No, it's not.
Anyway. I was just reading an article where they were like, okay, this is not relevant. I'll talk to you about this later. Anyway, so like, yeah, the way you're supposed to play it is like you got 4, you play it, and 3 of your buddies online join you to play with you. And I should have texted Emma about it, except she doesn't have Game Pass this month, so it doesn't
I would have gotten Game Pass for you.
We'll have to play it some other. I'll play it when I'm back at the ye old PlayStation.
Yes.
And you'll be like, why is your game stuttering so much? And I'll be like, that game doesn't run. It was fine. I had one cinematic. The opening cinematic had an unfortunate situation wherein the graphics sort of froze and stuttered, but the subtitles continued at normal speed. So I eventually kind of gave up because it was disorienting.
What is wrong with your PS4?
Yo, I don't know. But this happens in some form like every game. Not every time I play. It's settled in. I played it once for a little bit and then I came back and we played a little more later and it was like fine the second time. But yeah, just weird. Just weird. It is ridden with the devil worm, my PS4. But yeah, I did gather that the ridden attacked from the ongoing subtitles.
Good.
Didn't really get there in the cinematic, but the subtitles made it clear. But yeah, it's Left 4 Dead was couch co-op. I mean, I think you could play online as well, but it had a couch co-op option. Back 4 Blood, unforgivably, frankly, does not have couch co-op. Yes. Only has online play.
Yeah.
Which is really going to be the nail in the coffin, I think. I think we will play a little of this because it's like, whatever. Kind of fun. But if I could play it 2-player and tag in Game Pass Emma for 3-player, why then?
To be fair, I don't know if there's any game out there that allows simultaneous local and online co-op.
Why not?
I don't know. I imagine it's some sort of complicated system. It feels like that's the best of both worlds.
That, yeah.
But I mean, I just think it would be complicated.
I guess, here's what I have to say. What adult has 3 friends?
It's more likely, though, that you have 3 friends that live far apart from you than you have 3 friends in your own neighborhood, though.
Well, like, in your city, though. Like, come on over. There was one review that's like, this will be a great game to, like, have over some beers with your friends. And I was like, I guess, in your own homes. Like,
Yeah, but you're still talking.
yeah, I guess. I don't know.
The majority of our communication is not in person.
I know, but we don't play games together ever.
We played Youngblood.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that. You're right. That's another game we never
The
finished.
issue is that a lot of these online play ones are first-person shooters, which we don't play.
I was actually pretty good at this one.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I played on the lowest difficulty, and I'm sort of worried that maybe the lowest difficulty was, like, really easy.
That's fine.
Because
I
was like,
you're having fun.
heck yeah, look at me, I'm not dying. Well, I was sort of feeling like, maybe it's a little too easy. And, like, don't really feel like I'm playing with any strategy here. It's gonna be doing just fine.
You crank it up 1 and see how you do.
Also, like, a lot of the reviews were like, the bots are awful. The bots are terrible. They're just walking into the wall. They won't ever heal me. Like, garbage. Never play with bots. Man, the bots could do all, like, I could have just walked around. I kind of did.
They might have improved it since then. You never know.
You're right. It's possible. Anyway, I found the bots to be almost too competent, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was like, I'd be like looking at like, it wasn't even like when zombies ridden were actually attacking me, right? It'd be like a quiet moment. I'd be like looking at a little crate over here, just looking around, you know, as one does in a first-person shooter game, kind of like running into corners.
Yeah.
That's what I do anyway. Make sure I don't miss any rare loot. And they'd be like shooting all the zombies.
Good
like,
job.
What's up, friends? Like, good for you. But also, I could have done that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we played through, Quick My Boyfriend and I, like, traded off levels, because that was how we could pretend we could play local co-op.
Mm-hmm.
Really boo to the lack of local co-op. I'm not saying that everyone has, like, the 4 people they live with, but, like, surely no one has 3 friends and doesn't live with one of them, right?
Well, maybe.
I'm just kidding. I'm actually not just kidding, but I'm gonna pretend that I'm just kidding, so I haven't said that I have, like, 2.5 friends. Anyway, we'll forget that. The fact that it is on Game Pass does make that sort of thing seem like more, like, that's a stealth, Game Pass benefit. Right? One thing I always think is, like, impossible about these games is, like, not only do you have to have, like, 4 people who all own a PlayStation 4 or whatever.
Oh, that want to have this game?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, you say it like it's obvious, which it is, but I hadn't really thought about that as, like, an obvious Game Pass benefit before. I'd always sort of felt like Youngblood.
There are some games
Youngblood might have had, like, a tag-along mode, didn't it? Right, did only one of us have to own that?
Yeah, I think only one of us had to own that. And I know, like, Hazelight's games, if you're playing them online, only one of you has to own it if you're playing with a friend.
Right.
Online. So I think there are definitely some games that if you just get invited to the game, you can sort of play as a guest alongside somebody who owns that game.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's a good thing.
I don't know about Back 4 Blood.
No, I mean, I don't think Back 4 Blood is that way. Why would it be? It's on Game Pass. What's the point of Game Pass if not, like, this exact situation?
Sure, yeah.
Anyway, it's something I had not thought about before, but that has always struck me about these kinds of games that aren't free to play. It's like, man, it feels hard enough to get, like, 4 people to all at the same time turn on their game system, let alone 4 people to have all bought a $60 game.
I don't know. Maybe there's some people out there who just have regular game nights, you know?
Who has regular anything nights?
You know, people are into Call of Duty, maybe have, like, regular game nights with their game friends, you know?
Imagine having regular duty nights.
Madeline.
Regularly doing the duty with your
Gross,
friends.
stop it! I don't like that.
Anyway, I found Back 4 Blood okay. I was surprised to enjoy it as much as I did because I really got it expecting it to be, like, really bad.
Yeah, the fact that you enjoyed it and it's like a first-person shooter makes me go, oh.
I really think this is going to be weird, right? But I really think my experience with Skyrim has helped me.
That's fair.
Not that I did a lot of, like, I actively disdained bow and arrows in Skyrim.
Mhm.
Why? I don't know. I decided very early on that my
I feel
sweetheart
like
McFabe does not use bow and arrows.
I feel like first-person bow and arrow shooting would be even worse than, like, first-person gun shooting.
Yeah. But yeah, I do feel like having spent more time running around in first person, I have gotten a little bit better at it in that way. Something that I will
You've
never...
remapped your brain.
I guess, apparently. I did catch Skyrim before exiting age 26, so maybe I still had some synapses to connect. But... Ooh, the train of thought left. I'm old now. Like I said, the synapses.
The last synapses were reserved for Skyrim.
I was like, first person. Wait a minute. Emma, it's gone.
You were saying it was an okay game.
The devil worm has gone into my head. Anyway, whatever I was gonna say, whatever thing I was gonna say will come back. Oh, I remember what it was. It came back. I should have talk for a little bit.
Okay.
My continual problem with first-person shooter type games, though, is no game has ever quite gotten good enough for me at like if I'm turned this way. Listeners note that I've turned 45 degrees away from Emma here, right?
They can probably hear it.
Right, great. Look at that. The audio. Right? I'll turn back so you can hear me. But imagine that I've turned 45 degrees away from Emma and she's not in my immediate field of vision.
Right.
Also imagine that Emma is whatever your preferred term for a zombie is. See, I would be aware of that. Just because I'm turned over here, taking an awesome snipe shot at a zombie 50 meters away doesn't mean that I wouldn't hear zombie Emma literally right next to me.
Maybe you should put some headphones in. That might help.
But I play with my buddy,
but you don't
who
have
lives in the home.
You don't have surround sound.
I shouldn't have to use headphones. I guess they think I'm talking to my friends.
Where if just coming in through your TV speakers, how would they tell you there's a zombie behind you?
I don't know. Somehow,
sound.
With a haptic feedback.
With haptic feedback. You gotta get the PlayStation 5 for that. I bet if you put headphones in, or if you had surround sound
maybe
set up in your room, it would be easier to sort of. That's why they have to. That's why the first person gamers have to have those big chunky headphones.
I'm glad it's just me then.
Situational
I'll tell my boyfriend to set up surround sound, or he always seems to know that the zombie is there. So I just need him to start being when there's a zombie, and I'll be like, oh, there it is.
Then you really are playing together. You've made your own game. Yeah.
Wow, he's gonna love this. He'll love that. But yeah, I mean, I found it fun. In some ways, yeah, I was I needed it to be a little more. It's the early levels. We played the first almost through the whole first act, quote unquote. It's 4 of the first 5 levels. And yeah, it just wasn't ever quite that challenging. Something I've not talked about is the big thing that sets apart Back 4 Blood from Left 4 Dead is this deck building system.
Yeah.
Where it's you earn over time various cards that give you various buffs and abilities, and also the AI system will play cards that'll be the level's foggy this time, or all of them can poison you.
The game director.
Yes. As opposed to it was the AI director, right?
Yes.
In Left 4 Dead.
Yeah.
They just did not. I mean, not that they needed to try, but it's wow, you really didn't even try.
Yeah, I think the game director is called that because it is the AI director, but also it does more stuff.
Right.
So
I didn't really engage with that system at all. It didn't seem like I needed to. I didn't have any cards to change around, and the game director wasn't really playing any cards that seemed to have much of an impact.
Were you getting new ones as you kept going through, or do you have to do?
I think you have to go and buy them
with stuff you earn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I didn't really get to the point of engaging with the cards. Some of the reviews were at least one of the reviews I think it was maybe the Kotaku review, where they were the card system gets cool, but it also feels like a barrier toward getting your buddies into the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that review was I need a classic mode. I need a classic mode that gets rid of it. And I think that exists now, actually. So somebody read that review.
Yeah.
But they've teased couch co-op, but it's never gonna come.
It might. I mean, they're still updating it. There's a new expansion coming.
The end of the month.
Yeah. Next few days, probably.
Yeah. adding a whole new act.
Yep.
And a new cleaner.
Yep.
New enemies.
The other big difference between this and Left 4 Dead is both Left 4 Deads, I think, had their own set of 4 characters.
Mm-hmm.
This currently has 11 cleaners that you can choose from, even though it's only 4 at a time. And sort of playing in with the card system, each of them has their own like specialties and like special cards that they can get that affect their abilities. And also apparently have dialogue with whoever, like voice lines that address whoever is actually there on the field with them.
Yeah, they do that.
Which is neat.
Some of the stuff I was reading was like, they're trying to have more story than in Left 4 Dead. I was like, I don't know if you succeeded at that, friends.
Yeah.
Like, sorry. Like, how little story was there in Left 4 Dead that this is more story, but okay.
Not very much story, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, fair. And also that it's, like, more optimistic. I was like, okay.
Well, there's like an organized resistance.
No, there's an organized resistance. They don't seem especially freaked out by the zombies anymore. They're just like, we're gonna kill them.
It's not just 4 huge jerks.
But I just think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that they're like, oh yeah, the fact that these guys feel like pretty confident in killing the zombies, like that's an optimistic zombie story. I'm like,
Kinda.
No, it definitely is, but it just really highlights how little variety in that storytelling world there is.
That's fair.
Maybe if we do get a PS5, then I can set up the PS4 on a separate monitor in the office. Like my boyfriend can play on the PS5. You can join in on the Xbox. I'll get Dad to get the game, and then we can finally have
a horrible team.
Just an awful team.
The worst team. Dad would probably be fine.
Dad will carry the team. My boyfriend played Left 4 Dead. He was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm sure Clickbait Boyfriend would do okay.
He wasn't he wasn't that impressive when we were playing. He was playing the game.
It would just be me dragging down the team overall.
You could be the healer.
I don't think that's a good idea. I think in any team game, the healer is
the bot walking
the healer is the one that gets yelled at the most.
You did good, and I remember you being better at Youngblood than I was.
Was I?
That's what I remember.
Both just really bad at it.
Better at it. God, remember that one level where we like played for like 2 hours?
Yeah.
We just like could not finish off that one boss. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, I think like Back 4 Blood, if you're into this kind of game and you're looking for like you and your buddies are sick of Fortnite. I don't know. Like it's not it's not really Fortnite. There is a player versus player mode, but a lot of the reviews were like it's bad.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that. But if you're looking for something like pretty low key, it's pretty low key. Supposedly they like amped up the difficulty way too hard in a patch this fall. I saw they like made a mistake. They were like, this ain't right. We'll bring it back. But like definitely like is fun in that kind of like mindless way. And if you're like gaming with the bros can be anyone, by the way. I just think like this game is targeted at the bros.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good at that. It was a lot better than I expected it to be. Mostly because I just expect myself to be so bad at these. So you can even bring in your friends who are bad at games.
Alright.
Just not your friends on your own couch. Anyway, mashup time.
Yeah, let's do this mashup.
Oh boy.
Timeline hopping zombie game.
Okay, so yeah, you're like hopping between timelines trying to figure out how to stop the zombie apocalypse. What are they called in this game? It's gotta be something like time related, right? Like
yeah, they're like time zombies. Slowers.
I hate that. That's terrible.
Seconds.
I'm gonna go like bad time things. Benjamin Buttons.
Benjamin Buttons. Yes.
Time in Latin.
Maybe
the Tempus or something.
Time
the
Lords.
Temporis, not the Time Lords.
The Temporis is pretty good.
So the Temporis, and like the zombie disease in this game is something that's like it accelerates your aging, or not, like that's bad, right? That we just have a bunch of like
maybe like it like zooms all of your timelines together and like drives you wild in your head because
You're,
you have
too
like so
aware
much
of all
stuff.
your possibilities.
Yeah.
Existential dread is the zombie
Yes.
disease in this game. Great. That sounds great. This is already more story than Back 4 Blood can sustain.
And you have like this ability that helps you like separate all of those different timelines to keep them from like messing up in your mind, right? So that you have the ability to like control that, so you're immune from this virus.
Okay, big
and
brain,
you have to
got it.
sort of hop between all these different timelines to like figure things out, like who's doing what, how can you help, are there others who are like you, you know?
It's pretty brutal that you're like shooting all these people having existential crises.
Maybe you just, well, I mean, you know, maybe you just like bonk them, you know, with bonk Molotovs.
Yeah, they're fine. They're fine. Molotovs make them fine.
Yeah.
Okay. In the end, how do you fix it?
By like re-separating all of the timelines again, and it ends like spoiler alert, like the Golden Compass trilogy where they have to separate, and it's like really sad. You have to separate from like your one true love because you have to split the timelines again. I know that's not a timeline story, but you know what I mean, right?
No, I get it. It doesn't have to be a timeline story exactly. Yeah. Okay. What's the gameplay like?
It's like
there could be something here to doing like a haze light kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, that's not really like too built into either of these games, but like something with like that kind of like in the end there's like a branching path where you have to branch different ways.
Yeah.
For them it would have to be local co-op, but I guess in this one it would be online co-op. We'd like cut off the voice chat. It would be like no voice chat after this.
Sure. Maybe it's like a you know, in Journey, like you eventually meet like another traveler sometimes.
Yeah.
That you could travel with.
Yeah.
So like maybe at the beginning of the game you like choose one of two characters and you're like secretly matched with another player.
Right. And
like you're both like doing things through your storyline that like somehow converge at different
This is
points.
interesting. This is like the White Chronicle, Black Chronicle kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of
sounds sort of impossible, but
well, I was gonna say like you could probably like, especially if you were like working against each other, then it has hints of speaking of time games, it has hints of Deathloop.
Yeah, I don't know if you wouldn't have to be working against each other.
Well, I'm just saying like that's what the White and the Black Chronicle are doing in the original game here in Radiant Historia. But I don't mean like necessarily you have to be working against each other, but I feel like there's like, yeah, that would be hard. Because it's like, how would those choices, like how would you be like keeping up at the same time?
Yeah.
But we'd figure it out.
Yeah, I'm still sort of nebulous on what like the meeting would be. Maybe you're just each going through your own stories, but like occasionally like you are in another player's like world thing. Maybe you're like meeting lots of different versions of this other character, you know? And every time you go into a timeline, like there's like an active player, you know, that is the other one that happens to be there.
Yeah, but I want to play with my bros.
But we're doing like a he's like
we're
doing an artsy fartsy thing.
Yeah, I know. You're right. Okay.
It could prioritize friends, right?
Right.
A lot of games do that.
Yeah. This is an interesting game. I don't think it will appeal to either of the audiences of the original two games, so we're in danger zone. But
it doesn't have to. That's not the point of these mashups.
I know the point of these mashups is just bad games.
No,
frankly.
It's just design exercise.
I know. I'm just kidding.
I don't think this is a bad game.
I don't either.
I think it's probably really technically challenging to the point of being impossible, but I don't think it's a bad game.
I mostly meant this game is going to be broken AF when we release it. Yeah. And that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll be like, that's the point of the game. That's the point.
I don't know if that's the point.
The characters will have great silhouettes. I'll tell you that much for sure.
Well, that's just basic game design.
Right.
That's just basic character design.
Oh, and our two characters will come from two countries with, like, painfully generic RPG names.
That's gotta be it, you know?
They'll come from...
Just medieval fantasy names. It doesn't have to be RPG names.
You're right.
All medieval fantasy has painfully
They'll come from
generic
Altreus
names.
and Ethereum.
Let's not do a theorem. I'm gonna veto that one. You'll have to come up with something else.
Oh, working title coming. Anyway, folks, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
Have you played Radiant Historia or Back 4 Blood? Do you want to get into my Back 4 Blood bro team? Be one of my Back 4 Blood bros. Bros for blood. Have you played Left 4 Dead? And now you're like, wow, who knew there's Left 4 Dead 3? What are they going to do when they make a fourth one? What would they have done if there was Left 4 Dead 4?
Left 4 Dead.
Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, you have to say it like that every single time.
Well, if you have thoughts on any of these games or anything else from this episode, you should hit us up on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You should also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games that are in the hat, and read our blog, featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend, Split Screen, and of course Emma's monthly blog series. But most importantly, if you enjoyed the show, you should subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, really wherever you can find podcasts, wherever you found the podcast today. Find Talk This and subscribe while you're there, so you'll never miss an episode. Next week, unbelievably, it is our 6 Weeks in Gaming episode.
Yeah?
Who could believe it? The end of August. Wow. So tune in for that. You'll hear what we've been playing. And then after that, we're back to another main episode. So Emma, let's go to the hat.
All right.
What are we going to be talking about?
For our old game, we are going to be talking about... Oh, Madelyn was making a drum roll motion.
I was.
Ark the Lad.
Nice.
And for our new game, we're going to be talking about Mario Strikers Battle League.
Oh, that's the, sports one, isn't it?
It's the soccer one.
I wasn't confident. I thought it was soccer, but I was like, is there really a Mario soccer game? There is.
Also, I really need to replace the games in the hat, because we had 4 each.
And I watched you pick Back 4 Blood. I was like, we can't do that again.
Yeah.
Can't do it again. Well, don't miss that. Will it be September by the time that's happening?
I don't know.
Yes. Labor Day weekend.
There you go.
What says Labor Day weekend like Mario and his pals playing some football?
Football.
Exactly. So don't miss that. Don't miss next week's 6-week recap. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get a good sign off. Do you have a good sign off?
I hope this week you are in the most radiant timeline.